Разговарав со поранешниот амбасадор на Европската Унија во Македонија, Фуере, еве ги неговите позиции. Ambassador Fueре, it is good to have you on the newscast. Thank you for this opportunity. It's been 10 years since you have left Skopje as an official representative of the European Union, but we are still in the same position, still waiting to start the negotiation process with the European Union. You know well the positions of the Macedonian people. If you were a Macedonian citizen, how would you feel about all this that happens today?
Well, thank you for having me. I can well understand the frustration of the citizens and also of the Macedonian government at the continued delays and indeed the failure of the European Union to respect the commitments that it has made. And if it continues in this way, it is in danger, the European Union and its member states, of losing all credibility in the Western Balkans. And also it's in danger of losing the hearts and minds of the Macedonian people who have been waiting patiently, and I would add, have also been undertaking all the reforms that are so important for the country's future, reforms that are needed for accession, but also are important for the country. So it really is now time for the European Union to deliver, and without any further delays.
Yes, but Ambassador, today we still have the same message from Slovenia. They said that a lot of progress has been done, but we still need to make some progress about the rule of law, the independence of the media. Nothing about the concrete measures or nothing about time frame for the enlargement process. How do you comment this?
Well, of course, this summit was not and is not a summit for actually taking decisions. It's more for pushing the process forward and also ensuring a reaffirmation of the EU's commitment. The decision will be taken in the regular European Council in December, and there it will be absolutely vital that the European Union should formally open or at least set a date for the Intergovernmental Conference to open the accession negotiations with both countries, Albania and North Macedonia. It is now almost 2 years since the green light was given for the opening of negotiations. And it is really imperative that the veto from Bulgaria must be lifted and that the first date for the Intergovernmental Conference should be taken at this meeting in December. In the meantime, of course, the reforms must continue. That is a permanent process. Reforms don't depend purely on dates. The reforms are important for the country's future, in addition, of course, to meeting the conditions for EU accession. But I really would insist that the European Union now has to deliver before the end of this year on its commitments. Otherwise, it will lose all the credibility.
What would be your advice for the Macedonian politicians after all of this that we have seen? Can they still count on the pressure of our partners from the European Union and the United States to pressure more on Sofia? And can we expect a result from something like that?
Well, certainly the pressure from those who are very much in favor of the enlargement process and, of course, of the United States, the Biden administration have been very clear in supporting the accession of the Western Balkans into the European Union. This must continue. But for the Bulgarian issue, it really is imperative on the European Union to engage much more in this process. There needs to be a mediation effort It cannot just remain that Bulgaria just blocks the whole process purely for reasons of its own interpretation of history, which have nothing to do with the enlargement, the conditions for accession, etc. And as I have said before, if we were to follow the Bulgarian logic, Ireland and Britain would never have been part of the European Union. We are still debating our history after all these decades of shared history. So the Bulgarian veto has to be addressed in a much more vigorous manner by the European Union, and it has to ensure that the accession negotiation can start. And at the end of the day, history will not forgive the member states or the European Union if they fail to take this opportunity and now to formally respect the commitment that was entered into many times and reconfirmed last year for the opening of accession negotiations finally with North Macedonia and with Albania.
Ambassador, if it is so important for the European Union, the process of the enlargement, is it time to change something about the process how they decide to start these negotiations?
Well, of course, this is an issue that is not just in the enlargement context. The problem of the method of taking decisions and the power of one country to block the unanimity rule, all of this is weakening the EU's method of action in foreign policy, and this has to change. One would hope that the Conference of the Future of Europe, which is now underway, could perhaps address this issue, because unanimity rule is certainly a huge impediment to a greater, more strong role of the European Union, not just in the Western Balkans, but also on the world stage. And so long as this unanimity rule continues, the European Union will remain weak and will not be able to assume its responsibilities and the role that it should and can play on the world stage. For the immediate interest of the Western Balkans, it's even more important, because the longer the delays, the more the European Union, as I said before, is losing its credibility. And if it loses its credibility in its nearest neighborhood, then what does this say about its capacity to act in the broader international context on the world stage?
We need to be clear. We are waiting for the elections in Bulgaria next month. So we need to think on the possibility that nothing maybe not be agreed by December. Can we expect something to happen in the first 6 months next year, since we know that France is the country that is taking over the presidency of the European Union, but taking in mind that Macron was the one that put veto when we have the biggest chance to start the negotiations in 2019?
The more the delays in the EU respecting its commitments, the greater the loss of credibility. There is no doubt about that. Regarding the French veto in 2019, yes, this was extremely unfortunate. And while, of course, some of the considerations put forward by President Macron were legitimate in terms of trying to improve the efficiency of the accession process, at the same time, this could have been achieved without blocking or delaying the accession process as it did at that time. Be that as it may, in March 2020, the European Union gave the green light for opening accession negotiations. Now, all the focus is on Bulgaria, and I think it's absolutely quite clear that this is undermining the legitimacy of the European Union if they allow one member country to impose its will using reasons which have nothing to do with the accession process. So there needs to be, between now and December, a much more proactive mediation role undertaken to deal with the Bulgarian issue. It cannot be left just to one visit every 2 or 3 weeks by one commissioner or a senior official. It has to be a determined mediation effort with the Bulgarian authorities between now and in the next few weeks to deal with it. If we lose again the opportunity of December, then I fear that the whole enlargement process will be is already under a dark cloud, but will be put under serious question for further delays. And I think this will be a great pity. Of course, it will add to the frustrations for North Macedonia, but also it would undermine even more the credibility of the European Union and diminish its authority in the region.
Yeah, we all hope for a quick solution. Ambassador, you have a lot of friends in Macedonia. What would be your message to the Macedonian people now?
Well, I would say never to lose hope. In Ireland, we had a very difficult history with our neighbour. It took many years to resolve. We never gave up hope, and in the end, we managed to achieve results. And at the same time, I would say to the Macedonian citizens, not just to give up hope, but also to continue with the reforms, because these reforms are important for the country's future, for the reputation of the country, the rule of law, the importance of recognition of the freedom of the media, and the role of civil society. These are all issues which can distinguish the Macedonian example in the Western Balkans. So I would encourage Macedonian citizens to continue in this way and never to give up hope despite the difficult horizon ahead.
Ambassador, thank you for this interview.